1. Rotate. E2. Positive right. Gear up. Gears up and lock. Okay, gear down. Gears coming down. Okay, and it looks like we have a red caution light, meaning the gear is in transit, and our left gear, main gear, is not extended. So we're going to go ahead and slow it down now. We're going to ignore the gear horn, because that's going to go off because of the in-transit light. Go ahead and select our flaps. We're going to set full flaps for this landing. We'll have to be as slow as possible. We will assume, for demonstration's sake, that we've already done the gear extension checklist and procedures and we're unsuccessful. So we are now committing to the left gear up landing. Okay, now you're going to hear this horn all the way to the ground because of the fact that the flaps are past the approach speed and configuration with the gear not down, so the alarm's going off. Anytime the flaps are more than 10 degrees with the gear up, that will sound. Alright, so now we're going to come in. Our normal approach speed is 75 knots, and we're going to slow down even further as we get over the runway. Going to try and do is touch down on the right main gear and hold it on that for as long as possible as we reduce speed. And because of this, we're going to do a short field landing and land on the runway as best we can on the numbers. Alright, so now we're slowing it down. $80 knots. There we are. So now we're above the runway. We're going to hold it off. 65 knots. Adding a little bit of power if needed. 60 knots. Okay, we're on the ground. Power idle. Okay, as of right now, we're getting vectors for the ILS to runway 2 into Eastman at 4,000 feet. Now, we're looking at our engine instruments right here, and we can see our engine number 1 on the left side, our oil pressure is low. Now, when we look at our oil temperature, we're going to see this slowly rising along with the cylinder head temperature. So we're going to keep an eye on that for a few minutes while we do our approach. We can already go ahead and descend down to 2,000 feet as we begin the approach. So we're going to go ahead and shallow descent. Now, our oil pressure is in the red now, so I think we should probably shut that engine down to keep it safe. So what we're going to do is we're going to maintain our altitude here for just a moment while we shut the engine down. We're going to bring our throttle number 1 down to idle. Go ahead and add the rudder pressure to keep us going straight. We're going to bring our gear back up. We don't need that up. Alright, we're going to cut the mixture in our fuel. And then we'll also go ahead and feather, so you can see how much easier it is to fly the plane. So now that we have that, we'll continue our descent as we keep working to shut down the engine. So we have it fully shut down, and you can see the oil pressure is totally down to 0, and the engine manifold and RPMs are dropping. So everything looks good there. We're going to secure the engine now by simply making sure the fuel's off. Our cowl flaps are closed, number 1. Over here, we're going to turn off the generator, number 1, and turn off the magnetos. Those are off. And last but not least, our fuel pump. And that is off. So there we have our engine number 1 shut down and secured. And since we're a little ways out, we'll add a little bit of rudder trim to help us out. There we are. Piece of cake. So now, what we're doing is we're descending out of 3,400 feet for 2,000 feet, and we're getting vectors in for the ILS. Our glide slope is alive. Okay, so now we're on our 090 heading, going down to 2,000 feet with the engine failure. We've already declared an emergency and told land on approach that we've had an emergency. We'll go ahead and reset our squawk code for 7700, our emergency squawk. So other than that, we're just ready to fly the plane and get on into Icing. Okay, so now we're on the approach. We have our localizer captured, and our glide slope is coming up. So right now we're just making sure we're below 140 knots for the gear extension, because we always want to put our gear down at the final approach fix. And that's going to be in the glide slope intercept for the ILS approach. So there we are. Gear is coming down. Gears down and 3 green. Okay, so localizer centered, our ILS, and our glide slope is centered. So we're looking good. Now we're just managing our trim and watching our coordination. Coming up on 1,000 feet. (1,000). Landing checklist. Our mixture is set. Props are set. Our fuel pump is on and our landing lights are on. Checklist complete. So now as we get closer, our ILS, glide slope, and the localizer are getting more and more sensitive, so we're making smaller changes. Checking our airspeed and altitude, everything's looking good. Glide slope centered. Now on one of these kind of approaches where we have our engine failed, it's very important that we make our approach as best we can, because a go-around with a single engine can be very dangerous if it's even possible. And some days when it's hot, it may not even be possible to do a go-around. That's why flying a stabilized approach right on the dot is always important. Alright, 500 feet. Glide slope localizer looking good. Start reducing our power so we're not flying too fast over the threshold. Glide slope's looking good, managing our trim. Alright, trim is now neutral, so now we're flying it based off the rudder. And there's the runway. The power idle, making sure the gear's down just one more time, and now we're just going in for a normal landing. Nice and easy. And touchdown, very nice. That completes the engine shutdown and engine out approach. Okay, this will be a demonstration of effects of ice on the aircraft during a normal takeoff. Stabilized, max thrust, power set, airspeed live, engine instruments are normal. 60 knots, V1, rotate, V2, positive rate, gear up. Now already, I can already tell that there's icing on the wings because we have a reduced climb rate and we're having a very hard time at maintaining our climb out speed. Now we're already at full power, our gear is up, our flap is up, so all we're basically trying to do is maintain our climb out speed to keep us safe at 90 knots. Now usually under no icing we'll have at least 1,000 feet a minute, and you can see here as we hold our pitch, the airspeed is decreased, so I'm going to have to lower our nose just to maintain our 90 knots. So now we're still slowing down and we're at 0 feet per minute and we're unable to maintain altitude. So we have to sacrifice altitude for airspeed. So we're reducing our nose, we're already starting to descend and we're only 200 feet above the ground. Stall horn is going off. We're losing control because we don't have the lift that we would under normal circumstances. So you can see you lose full control.